This is week 2 of our webinars with Jgor. Thanks again for joining us. Today we're going to be discussing sustainability and what that means at Banfi. Sustainability has been baked into the ethos of Banfi since they were incorporated back in 1978, and they were the first winery in the world to have been awarded, wait for it, the ISO 14001 and SA 8000 in recognition of their exceptional environmental, ethical, and socially responsible practices. That's about as technical as I'm going to try and get today, and I think Jgor is keen to keep this keep this discussion moving along. So I'll be providing a link at the end to their sustainability report, which has lots of the facts and figures in. So don't worry, we're not going to get bogged down as we go along. Sustainability can be looked at in many ways, but today we're looking at the 3 key areas that Banfi break it into. First off is environmental sustainability that I'm sure you're all keenly aware of. One of the things we'll discuss is Christina Mariana May's appearance last year at the World Economic Climate Change Summit, as Banfi truly are world leaders. The economic impact or the economic sustainability of winemaking. Banfi have been leaders in sharing research and knowledge and ensuring that all of the wineries and the winemaking viability in Montalcino is successful. And then finally, cultural, because they are the potential impact they had in 1978 of arriving as Italian Americans back from the US put a lot of fear into the locals, and they have taken with gusto the responsibility that was on their shoulders to ensure that they only had a positive impact. So that's me done with my slightly rambling introduction. Jgor, welcome. What does sustainability mean to Banfi?
So we start with a very huge question since the beginning. So sustainability is not something you can, let's say, invent all of a sudden, but it is in the vein of Banfi, in the blood of Banfi. It's a very, let's say, broad concept, which is involving a lot of different kind of plans, of crossing plans, not only about the environment and social, ethical way of working, but all together, built step by step in order to be, let's say, ethic and to make wines not only for consumption, but for an ethical consumption, for a quality purpose. So everything is a concept which has been built by the Mariani family and Banfi in general since the beginning with a very, very precise concept. I like to say that when John Mariani in '93 he made the grand ceremony, the grand opening of the winery just built in 3 years of long working, he was saying that the profoundest desire of Banfi, because he always refers to Banfi as a family, was to keep wellness of the territory, of the community, of Montalcino in general, and to build something which is absolutely fair. So every action, every kind of legal plan or whatever that they were doing since the beginning must be socially fair, environmentally safe, and economically feasible. So these were the 3 concepts that John Mariani and the Banfi family was built on. So sustainability came step by step in order to develop this kind of philosophy and broad concept, and introduced in every single little details and step of our production. So sustainability was, let's say, the fuel to make quality wines in pursuit of excellence. So everything that Banfi made since the beginning was into this concept. So try to be the best in the wine production, in the quality of the wines, in the way of working, in the viticulture, agriculture, everything about the wine business in an ethical way. So sustainable became a word in absolutely topic keywords for Banfi in general. So whatever we have done since the 78 to develop the business and the company was in order to keep this very loyal concept and strict plan of sustainable, fair, ethical, and feasible for all of the elements and the aspects of the social and economical business of Banfi. So it was a very long-term project, which is still today developing, and then built step by step on very nice and smart ideas, very new and absolutely pioneer research, knowledgeable study, ethical way of working, building a new concept of team into a winery. So keeping the same employees for so long in the company. So everything was absolutely new for the wine business in Montalcino and in Banfi as well. We must remember that in the 80s, so we began in 78, in the 80s, these concepts were not that spread all over the wine business in Italy. So it was really an innovation, but it came, as I said, naturally, spontaneously. So everything was really the will to make the wines as ethical as possible. There's a nice, let's say, sentence, a phrase that John Mariani used to say, which comes from a book that he gave us, to all of us, all of the Banfi employees some years ago. Maybe Christina gave us, which is, Banfi is a giver, not a taker. And this was really the philosophy of Banfi, and is still today like that. In all of the segment of our business, whatever it is, into the company with the team, the employees, the partners, importers, clients, consumers, that's it.
Well, that's fantastic. The sustainability that's built in is clearly on so many different levels. If we look at environmental first, I was watching Christina's presentation at the World Economic Climate Summit, and she was talking about, because Banfi have got such a large estate, there isn't the pressure to maximize land usage. So one of the best stats, and I love stats, was that you have got one of the highest ratios of forest to agricultural land of any estate in Italy.
Yeah.
Beyond forests, and we all love trees, what other steps towards environmental sustainability does Banfi have, or does Banfi take?
So, as you well said, Banfi is a huge estate. So we have more than 3,000 hectares in total in Tuscany and Piedmont. So the balance and the equilibrium in this big estate was the key to understand how we based our sustainability concept. So you correctly say we have the highest ratio of forest and wild let's say environment in Europe compared with the vineyards. So this means that everything we did was to let's say increase the balance into our property, so to avoid erosion, to study the soil, to make every little corner of the estate like a single vineyard, to make rotation in the cultivation, to reduce the impact of everything that was ingredients, chemicals, to make very, let's say, gentle ingredients for the environment, to cultivate and to keep all of the vegetables and plants and fauna already existing in the estate. So a kind of development of the balance of the estate. So this balance, it was very, let's say, deeply studied by Banfi. So we based, once again, everything on the research and the study. So when you purchase such a big estate of 3,000 hectares, and you have maybe been there only for a few times, what can you do in the beginning to be absolutely safe about what your business will be? You must study. You must discover what the ground, the territory, the environment is telling you. And so to do that, we based everything on the research, and then automatically everything was also linked to the wine production. So by studying the soils, the compositions, irrigation, the water, we were able to fund our business in an ethical way and in very. Don't hear me? Yeah, okay. So everything was really based on the study of the territory. So, for instance, we discovered 29 different kind of soils in our property. What that mean? If you plant a Sangiovese vine in all of those 29 soils, the same plants at the same time, you will get probably in 3 years' time 29 different kinds of Sangiovese. Then the clonal research came naturally because we were also quite smart to understand that not all of the Sangiovese were growing the same in all of these 29 soils. So a big clonal research with microvinification and the discovery, once again, of 650 different clones of Sangiovese kept us quite busy for 10 years to do microvinification of all of them in all of the soils. And this led to another very nice concept that we apply to the winemaking and the viticulture today, which is zonation. So after such a long and deep research of 10 years, we found out that to divide the vineyards into zones was more and more important than keeping vineyards and let's say picking and treat all of the vineyards like they were a big one. So the concept that Banfi is a constellation of single vineyards came exactly from this concept. So because every soil and every clone of Sangiovese, depending on the aspect, sun, age of the plants, soil composition, were giving different results. And to divide the soil in a lot of little zones were the key to produce a high quality Sangiovese and to be absolutely very knowledgeable about every corner of the estate. This, related to the wine business, we will go deeper maybe afterwards, is quite crucial because we can do technically, and we do, 29 different kinds of Brunello every year because 29 zones are giving different kinds of wines and grapes, of course. So, and this was another very crucial way to maybe face difficult vintages like the super hot ones or the very rainy, or to maybe cross over all of the problems linked to bad weather conditions when they happen. So these were the base of our environmental sustainability. Then, being the weather and the global warming more and more critical and crucial every year, we made such a long study also in the water consumption. So we calculated that to make a bottle of wine, let's say it takes almost 10 liters of water. That means that being such a huge estate, the consumption of water we need to produce wine is incredibly huge. So in a weather condition like, let's say 2017, when we didn't have a drop of water from April to September, how can you keep the water? How can you use such a big amount of water if you cannot save it? So we based our viticulture and once again the environmental care on saving the water, because this is crucial once again for the wine business and at the same time also for the care of the environment. So we got some collection artificial lake that we use, of course, to collect water, and then we recycle the water that we use for cleaning tractors and all of the machines that we are using in the agriculture. So because water is not, of course, used to make wine, it's used to in the process of the winemaking and mainly for cleaning. So if you clean a tractor, which is is full of oil and other, let's say, rough things used for everyday agriculture, how can then you recycle that water in a safe way, in a very, let's say, in an environmentally care way. So we invented a biobed, which is made by different layers of straw and other vegetable materials, where we put the water and we filter naturally in the long term. So it takes sometimes 3 years to get the cleaned water from this process. But by doing that, we are just keeping the oil and all of the ingredients which are not safe for the recleaning into the vegetables. And then we collect very clean water that we can reuse in the cleaning once again. And this is also in the winery. This is for every process of the winemaker, for the bottling line and whatever. So for those who has been in Banfi Winery at least once, you've noticed that the winery is always perfectly clean, is always absolutely safe, hygienic. So this is thanks to water, and water is a key, a very crucial key for that. So I'm just going random and just thinking about the erosion of the soil. It's a huge question once again.
I'm sorry, it was big.
No, but that's what we are here for. So we were digging. I got the numbers that were impressing me since the beginning, my beginning in Banfi. We digged 90 miles of water drainage in our territory and almost 42 miles underground. This also for using a kind of dripping, very specific dripping irrigation when necessary. So instead of wasting water for irrigation, we were able, and we still are today, to use in such specific zones every time, and to use with moderation. So only if necessary, and to not waste a single drop of water. But at the same time, this kind of big ditches were also quite useful to keep erosion, to avoid every kind of, let's say, destruction of the environment. We do rotation in our vineyards, like we were used to do in the past for the agricultural management. I don't know the name in English, but when you are replanting a new vineyard, instead of using the same part of land, let's say, the same hectare, we can, luckily, because we're big, leave that vineyard with no plantation for 3 years long. And in those 3 years' time, we may be planting bees or other kind of very healthy natural ingredients, which are able to reproduce every natural ingredients that the soil needs to be once again rich and give nutrients to the new plantation in 3 years' time. So these are all things that we understood and we, let's say, developed step by step, just by paying attention to our territory, to the everyday agricultural life, to viticulture, to the behavior of our environment and everything else. So we have, as I said, a lot of forests. Forests can be absolutely crucial once again in the control of the erosion. So that's why we didn't plant where there was no reason to do that. So we have 3,000 hectares of estate, but it's 1/3 only for winemaking, for viticulture, and the rest is natural, as you say, and is the highest ratio in Europe, not only in Italy. So all of these stuffs were absolutely important to keep our concept of sustainability into the environmental way, of course. And there's plenty of others. I'm just thinking aloud once again. And
I think it really demonstrates that when the family came in 1978, they recognized that it wasn't a short-term proposition. It was something to pass down through the generations. And environmental protection of the land you've got is so important on that front. I think one of the things I read was that the Castello Banfi, 12th century castle, you're the third family to own it. Well, not you, your bosses. But I mean, I think it really demonstrates the longevity and the forward thinking that you really need to have. And the good news about, or the good thing about being a relatively young to the industry is that you can look at things with fresh eyes, and you can do best practice from the off, which kind of gets me on to my next question, which is about the economic sustainability of both Banfi and in the region. When the family started in 1978, there were only 10 producers of Brunello, and now there's over 240. And the phrase that sticks with me is that when we were celebrating our 40th anniversary last year at the Dorchester, one of the phrases Christina used was that they always had the mentality that all ships, a rising tide lifts all ships, and that they were keen to elevate the standards of winemaking in the region. What have Banfi done to help improve the economic sustainability of those making wine in Montalcino and Brunello?
So, as you correctly say, being from another country, coming from another country far away, the Americans were landed in Montalcino, and all the community maybe could be a little afraid of that. But in the end, what we have done for the community and let's say concept we based our business on was absolutely in their advantage. I mean, Banfi was always taking care of the community, and also to not, let's say, make any mistakes since the beginning. We were quite smart to keep the tradition of the community into the viticulture first, and then in the economy afterwards. So whatever we introduced in the winemaking processes, in the agriculture and viticulture processes, were shared with the community. And whatever we studied by ourselves first and with the universities after, were shared once again with the Montalcino territory. So you said that there were very few producers at that time making Brunello. So they were more than 10, I think 14 something. But now the 250 existing are exactly in the same area that was the commune of Montalcino in the 70s. So that means that Banfi was really the leader in Brunello production and the first to spread the verb Brunello in the world. And so there were no competition, honestly, between us, because all of the producers which are now selling and producing by their own label wines were absolutely proud to be of this part of the area because of Banfi. And we gave them the pride of being in Montalcino, and we helped somehow the pride, once again, of being from this area. So the small and little farmers that were selling grapes or wines to the big players, they became producers themselves. And this was thanks to the big help of the Banfi effort. So from the winemaking point of view, we were following what the agriculture was telling us. So when I was talking about zonation and clonal research and innovation in general, these were very smart ideas that, of course, came out from a big knowledge of the territory. But to divide the land in zones and then not being able to follow up those zones into the winery was a big challenge. So zonation was made real when we introduced in the winery a new concept of fermenting the wine. So Horizon, that's the name of our project, is the new technology which is blending wood and stainless steel together in hybrid tanks to ferment at the same time with the two most important, let's say, materials of the winemaking at the same time, and having a kind of new idea of winemaking with avoiding oxidation, keeping the pureness of the fruit, developing what we were already doing into the zonation. So technically speaking, by this kind of new fermentation project, we can follow up. So that means picking, fermenting, aging every single zone by itself. So we can treat every part of the estate, every little corner of the estate like a single vineyard. And this was a development into the winery of the zonation concept by these kind of hybrid tanks. Then, of course, what we introduced also was the first ethical way of meaning the business in not only in the viticulture, but in the whole process. So we were the first to introduce the wood aging in our territory, and to not buy barrique, either big barrels, but to buy wood and in staves and age open space in the winery, and to make barrel by ourselves with a partner of us, which is still today producing the Banfi barrels, a different shape, dimension. 350 liters is the smallest, but to not shipping barriques, but just wood, raw materials, we're saving a lot of CO2. And then by aging the wood in our territory and producing barrels by ourselves, we give our style to the wood, and then of course the wines aged in those wood. This is saving a lot of CO2. We were the first in the 90s, end of the 90s, 2000, beginning of 2000, to introduce the lightweight bottles in our winery. So we moved from 570 grams bottles to 400 and then to 360. Instead of being such a huge producer of wines, the amount of CO2 that we are saving just by reducing the weight of the bottles is incredibly high. We made a huge calculation that you can follow up on our website in the end. But we are just like taking off from the road something like 360 trucks running every day just because of the lightweight bottles. So these were very, very, let's say, smart ways of meaning sustainability into the wines. And that, of course, was becoming an economic way of being sustainable, because this is not only saving money. For instance, buying barrique is more expensive than producing barrique from ourselves, but of course is an ethical way of meaning the business. It's a fair trade responsibility. So, and everything was really developed into a nice and smart concept of leaving the environment and the ethical of winemaking as natural as possible. Don't know what's happened?
Who did that?
Okay, so these are little tools and pioneering visions that we had since the beginning, and we developed step by step. I remember that when Cristina joined the company, it was the end of the 90s, we gave a twist to the sustainability, and we got the first certification just starting from those times. So the first became true in 2001, if I'm not wrong. Well, we did a very big, process to get the official certification and to be the first in the world. Maybe at that time we were, not that able to communicate, and maybe the attention on sustainability was not that high as it is today. So, but we launched, I remember, a foundation called Sanguis Jovis in 1986. So, where there were no reason to be sustainable. I mean, in the communication, it was not marketing, it was real. In the 80s, to launch a foundation that was with the aim of spreading the concepts and the pioneering introduction, and to develop the territory to show what Montalcino was really, to me, ambitious from the ethical point of view. And that was, once again, the sign of the social responsibility and care that the Banfi has still since the beginning. So we were really trying to transform whatever was sustainable also into economical sustainability. I said in the beginning that all of these steps must be economically feasible. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. So sustainability is a process which is linking all of these parameters, environment and economic, across with crossing plans. That's the base of our sustainability once again.
Thanks, Max. I think from what you've said, and speaking with you and with Cristina and from everyone from Banfi, the importance of sharing the knowledge that you guys are developing through your research or clonal research work with universities. All of that has obviously helped make Banfi commercially successful, but it's passing it on to other people, which has helped everyone in the region. Which gets on to my next, or our final area, is as a large corporation, or as not a corporation, as a large business, Banfi had the potential to have a very big impact on the local society, local culture, but it is clear that that was never the idea. I was looking, you've got 126 employees who've been with you for over 20 years, 15-year average for employees, especially with a business that's only 40 years old. I was looking at the support you do for cultural events nearby. One of my favorite is the fact that you're helping, where is it? I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce it in Italian, or try to. Actually, I will. Orti negli Sugoli. Sound about right?
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Anyway, that is, Banfi is supporting local schools by helping plant veg gardens to improve the food culture and encourage healthy eating and nutrition. I think, you're clearly there to make a positive impact. I mean, what else is Banfi doing? What are you doing?
To keep the tradition and to make the territory and the community happy, I think that is a quite difficult challenge, of course. But if you do spontaneously and normally, everything is coming simply. So just respecting the balance in the territory with some absolutely basic but very, let's say, clever ideas was once again so clever from Banfi side. So we were, for instance, keeping also some very special agriculture projects and products in our territory, which are now part of the Banfi, let's say, 360 degrees project. So we are the first producer, maybe I'm wrong, but if not the first, the second in Italy, of prunes. So prunes were in our estate since ever. So why don't develop this? Why don't you keep on doing that? So what we're doing, cherries. Cherries are my favorite fruit, but also one of the most important, let's say, little agricultural project in the area. Not giving money is not our core business, of course, but we kept. Then we have protected for a long time a specific kind of donkey from the mountain living, the mountain surrounding Banfi. Amiata is the name of the mountain. And there was an almost disappearing race of donkeys called Miccio, is the Italian name of the monkeys, which were surviving also thanks to us. So we kept them and protect them. The first three, I remember they were name of philosophies. So Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates. So they were the names of the first generation of donkey that we adopted in our territory. Now there are three new baby little donkey girls.
What are they called?
Funny names given them by Christina's daughter. So Paperina, little duck, or I don't remember. So she's Pierina dei Frati. It's a very strange name, starting with P because of the year of birth. So we are then producing honey. So bees, as you well know, are, let's say, the sentinel of the environment. So if you are living in a very healthy environment, then the bees can survive. And we are producing a very nice honey, Banfi honey, with our bees. They're using a kind of very beautiful flower called sulla. I don't know the translation. Anyway, it's a very nice red flower they are mainly using for producing honey. And the result of the honey is absolutely wonderful and naturally spontaneous, coming from the environment. So we are acting like we were a little family of the territory, a little part of the community. We produce our Banfi pasta. Some of you had the chance to taste it in the restaurant of Banfi, which is fantastic. So we do we cultivate our wheat. We do Banfi pasta with a nice and specific variety of wheat called Senatore Cappelli. It's very resistant. It's absolutely fantastic. And this is also to, you know, keep on being a nice and small farmer despite the dimension. So 3 years ago or 4, we were in our woods, in our forest, we were developing a kind of truffle production, white truffles, because in Montalcino commune, there's a little area which is famous for white truffles. Not as famous as Alba in Piedmont, but the quality of the truffles is the same. So by planting or keep on, let's say, leaving some specific kind of oaks, we can now collect some wonderful white truffles. Unfortunately, not that many yet, but they are still in our project. And of course, which is as important as wine, is olive oil. We produce olive oil with a specific variety of cultivar, it's called, with a specific olive grape. And some of our olives plants are monuments. Maybe you've seen in the castle, in the top of the castle, in the garden surrounding the tower, the entrance of the castle, there's a plant which is centuries old. There are some plants going to surrounding the castle which are 5 or 6 centuries old. So that means that they are like monuments. They have roots, let's say, spread down in the ground for meters, I don't know, but they are really, they've seen things that we cannot even imagine, you know. It's like a real monument. And so these are part of the community, and these are what sustainability means. So I'm just once again thinking aloud. A colleague of mine, which is the agronomist in chief now, is maybe one of those working in Banfi for more than 25, 30 years, I don't know. He invented, and now is Banfi patented, a new trellising system called Alberello Banfi. And this was one of the most clever, pioneering vision of Banfi that we shared with the community. This new trellising system is now called Alberello Banfi. That means Banfi little tree. And it's just living in the same rows as spotted cordon. So you can replace a spotted cordon with Alberello Banfi quite easily. But in the end, it's performing great with Sangiovese. And for some of the most let's say, efficient reason to introduce it, it's avoiding the ESCA problem, or at least reducing the ESCA disease, which is quite big problem in the hot climate regions in Europe now, just by reducing the number of the cuts, of the prunings. So this was once again the final result of years of research, of paying attention to the territory and leaving the surrounding like we were part of that since ever. And finally, just to answer your question, we were sponsoring also those part of the social sustainability, which are still today a big investment from our side. We invested 200,000 euros last year in these activities, which are related to sports, as you said. So we are the sponsor of the Eroica bicycle race. We also did the Eroica Britannia last year. Some of you came down from the Latour, I remember, to run the Eroica bicycle race in Montalcino. I did it too, and it was very, very tough. And then we are the main sponsor and the organizer of Brunello Crossing. It's a wonderful run in the middle of the vineyards, up and down the hills. Tough once again, but absolutely beautiful. We are the inventor, and still today, let's say, of one of the most important jazz festival in Italy. Is called Jazz and Wine. Is the 22nd edition, and is international players and musicians coming from all over the world, playing jazz for a week in Montalcino, in the fortress of Montalcino, and in the Banfi castle as well. We are then using our, let's say, knowledge and found our money, our investment into a cultural project, because these are also part of sustainability. So we discovered the bones of a whale, a fossil whale in our property, because Montalcino was under the ocean. I'm talking about millions years ago.
5 million, I've been reading about this.
Yeah, and you know, it's not easy to manage a big whale fossil, but we were helping asking the help of the University of Pisa and Florence to keep and cleaning every little bone. And now, after years and years of restoring, we are now able to show and to make the whale to allow the students to come and visit the whale to see the result of this such a big long study. We have a glass museum in the castle, so which is collecting pieces of glass or whatever since the beginning of the glass era. So the culture is for Banfi another very important step of sustainability. Once again, keeping the social and the community quite close and absolutely happy, and increasing the economy and the pride of Montalcino. We calculated that just for the incoming visitors, we have more than 60,000 visitors per year in Banfi. If every single one is going to Montalcino and having a coffee or spending one night in a hotel or having lunch or dinner in a restaurant, that's money for the community. And so this is helping the life of Montalcino, that in the years became a very important and, let's say, rich little village. So all of these fantastic visions were shared with the community. So Banfi is not an individual property, it is really a part of the community. We're quite happy to share with the community, of course.
Great. I think time is coming on. Shall we go to questions? If anyone's got anything that they'd like to ask Jgor at all, this is where it normally gets quite fun. Kate, Sylvia. Right, I'm going to go on my grid. So Kate, Rebecca, can you unmute Kate somehow?
Hi everybody. Hi Jgor, how are you?
Hi, nice to see you, Kate.
Just a quick question, Jgor, or it might not be a quick question, but so you're doing loads in the vineyards. You've been really clear about what you're doing in the vineyards and the winery. The sustainability ethos, does that impact as well what you're doing in the offices? Are the offices powered by solar or green power, or do you have a system there for this sort of on the administrative side?
Yes, we have some of the electrical power. We can say from the lightweight, for instance, is giving us the power to use this kind of electricity in the offices. Then a part of the offices is now being, let's say, sustained, let's say, by a solar panel. It's just a little part that we're starting to introduce in the company, of course, which is also in increasing our sustainability vision. So yes, but from the social part of and let's say the employees' point of view, what is sustainable from our side is what Will said in the beginning. So every Christmas party we do, we give some nice, let's say, prizes to those employees that are running the business and working with us since long time. So last year, so 2019, we gave more than 11 prizes to over 40 years employers with Banfi. So that means that there's still people working from us since the beginning. And this, to me, is quite difficult to see in every other business in the world, not only in the wine business. So, and the most of us is in the company since more than 15 years or 20. So that means that the lifestyle into the Banfi, let's say, company is quite ethic, is quite healthy. Also in another meaning of sustainability. So power, electricity panel, solar panel, CO2 reduction, saving water is of course important, but it's as important as the quality of life of the employees. So if someone decides to spend his whole life working for a company, there must be a very strong reason for that. So, and indeed, this to me is really a quite important part of sustainability once again.
Sure. Thank you, Igor.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Igor. Now, I saw Sylvia was trying to get in before Kate, and Andrew, were you just waving as well? Yeah, all right, we'll come to Sylvia. Rebecca will unmute you, and then I think Andrew's next, and then I'll leave my window.
Hello, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Hi, Sylvia, we can hear you.
Ciao, Sylvia.
Hi, Igor.
Ciao, Sylvia.
I have a question. So, is the current situation affecting anyhow your practices in sustainability?
So that's a good question. So in these days, it's quite, let's say, tough to keep everything regular and normal as it should be, of course. But yes, we are meaning sustainability, and just to answer your question, in a long-term project. So there was a nice and very famous geologist in Italy, which was saying that the most of the new viruses in the world was coming from the impact that the human being is giving, especially in developing areas and introducing breeding farms in areas that were not able to do that. So, and this kind of let's say, mix of wild species and animals with breeding farms can lead to very dangerous mix and to create some new viruses and whatever. So we think, and we deeply think, that being able to keep sustainability in our property now from the viticulture and agriculture point of view will lead to a very long-term parameter and long-term results, which are not probably visible today, that you cannot, of course, prevent now, but that for sure will lead us to a safer and healthier environment in the long term. If we just imagine ourselves 40 years ago and nowadays, which is nothing, 40 years for you know, such a very long, very old territory, there's a big difference. So the impact of the Banfi sustainability and the viticulture and agriculture in the territory kept it as beauty as it was in the beginning, to not say even more beauty. So beautiful. So this is probably what we cannot see yet, but for sure everything we're doing now will be developed in the long term. It's coming to my mind that we are now developing a nice project with the University of San Michele al Adige, that is a famous enologist university, for experimental vineyard. So we are planting, thanks to them, different rootstock hybrid grape varieties, foreign grape varieties in 2 hectares of our property, just to see what will be in the future the response, the answer from the land, from the soil, from the grape, from the wine point of view. So we are trying to anticipate what is going to be in the next 20, 25 years. So trying to anticipate the global warming, the probably different way of meaning the appellation, try to also understand what does it mean to protect, to use very safe and strong hybrid grapes to avoid diseases and to resist hot temperature, to be able to protect themselves. So this is another, let's say, way to understand sustainability, and maybe to make the everyday work in Banfi healthier for the future, to leave our company as healthy as possible for the next generation. So that's probably, to answer your question, we should have done it to the Banfi family since the beginning, and maybe they were not that able to see what the immediate was, but quite able to do that for the long-term project. So I'm quite sure that in the next future and in the long term, we will be even better than today. And our nice vision will help the environment and the social community in Montalcino to be better. Absolutely, I'm quite safe about it.
Great. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Did that answer your question, Sylvia?
No, thank you.
Right. Andrew, I think you were hoping to ask a question. Rebecca has unmuted you. Can you hear her? Can we hear you?
I hope so. Is that good?
We can. You are
Hi,
live.
Andrew.
Excellent. Well, Sylvia's question actually overlapped with pretty much what I was going to ask. So, Jgor, very interesting answers. So just to progress that a little bit, and you talked about anticipation, anticipating the future. So I'm going to ask you to do that a little. The current situation with the pandemic, coronavirus, it's perhaps more of a personal view from you and broadening it out beyond Banfi. But what's your feeling in terms of how that will either push concern and interest in sustainability forward or perhaps hinder it? How do you feel that's going to pan out in people's minds collectively when it comes to interest in all things sustainable?
And that's indeed a very nice question as well. I mean that probably for those that were meaning sustainability or let's say a natural way of farming since ever, it will be a natural and a very spontaneous answer to your question. They will keep on doing what they already do because they will see the result quite easily. Mm. For instance, whatever I say to you, so the neutralizing system, the savings, water, and the vineyard management is still operational in Banfi today during the pandemic. So, and all of these measures will be definitely, probably, my vision, adopted by others in the next future quite easily. You know, there are, I think that once you are doing something good, probably you are quite good to influence and to better influence the community and the surrounding and the neighbor. So probably the immediate results of the long-term sustainability will be also adopted in this pandemic moment. Last week for the first webinar, we were talking about what the government is now doing for, let's say, avoiding this kind of difficult moment in the agriculture and the wine business as well. And I say that the Italian government is allowing now to work in the wineries until the sixth rule of relativity from relatives in your family. So that means that from the pandemic point of view, we will discover a new way of meaning agriculture in a very spontaneous way. Now we are hiring 370,000 workers, foreign workers in the agriculture every year to do things that the Italians were doing since a few years ago. So this is probably also changing the way of meaning the work in the agriculture today. So me personally, I'm living in a flat. I would dream to have just 1 hectare of tomatoes or apricots or whatever to manage and to work in every day. So I think that there will be a huge rediscover of agriculture, and once again, in the sustainable way. In the tourism, for instance, which is maybe #1 economic, let's say, incoming for Italy, tourism is now zero, because nobody can come from around the world, and nobody, even in Italy, can move and go into the sea or the mountains or to visit beautiful cities. So those regions like Tuscany, and talking about Banfi, we have a hotel in our castle. Those regions with a very low density of inhabitants, with a very, let's say, safe, how can I say, building concept. So to not overbuild everywhere and to not make cities and new houses every corner, they will be the first in the tourism that will be able to reopen after the pandemic. Because once you have this kind of wider room for all of the incoming tourists, you will be safer. And so that is probably another way of meaning sustainability that I hope that everyone in Italy will understand in the next future. So to not build a hotel close to the other on a beautiful beach, to not, let's say, overcrowd people for visiting Venice. This little concept will probably be more clear now, that we are dreaming for being once again in a queue for visiting a museum. But this approach will probably, I'm optimistic, I don't know, but this approach will maybe making the difference in the next future, also into the approach of sustainable agriculture or sustainable business in general. I hope so.
So do I. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy.
Does anyone else have any questions for Jgor? Oh, Piero. Rebecca, can you release Piero? Oh. Oh, sorry, Piero. Technical difficulties. There you are. Can we hear you?
Yeah.
Piero.
Oh, we've got you. Thanks, Piero. Ask away.
Just a quick question. Do you measure the emission of your import-export process? And if yes, how are you planning to reduce or offset them?
So we measure, of course, first of all, with the lightweight bottles. So there are countries like also the UK or the Scandinavian countries where the lightweight is mandatory, is absolutely important, and you can't sell wine if you don't measure this new introduction and innovation. So we did spontaneously even before they were asking, and so this is quite smart. And then the second, which is probably a challenge for Italian wine business, is, for instance, screw cap. So screw cap is also reducing the impact of cork production, which is a natural element, and also probably reducing the emission of CO2 to produce cork and whatever. So even if we cannot give yet a real money quantification, we cannot count and measure how much we are saving from those. These are some policies that we already introduced in Banfi since the beginning. So if you just follow a kind of your sustainable philosophy into your vein, every little process of the winemaking will follow up it. So I'm just thinking once again about our bottling line, for instance. So in the bottling line of Banfi, to use recycled water, to make a very strict control, to use lightweight glass, we are also using this different kind of approach to the bottling in a way that is then linked and spread also in the shipping. And then the shipping, of course, is reducing cost, is reducing CO2, saving greenhouse effects. So every little process, it's incredibly effective in the end of the business. So even if it seems to you that you're doing nothing, in the end, the little innovative idea that you had years ago can really save money and then can really also save environment. Economically speaking, one of the most, to me, effective sentences that I can express Banfi is that we are doing, and this is maybe the follow-up of your question, we are doing the highest quality possible wine independently on the price range. That means that our entry-level wines are the best entry-level we can do. And the process and the chain to produce an entry-level wine is as important as the chain to produce the Brunello Riserva or the, let's say, very famous Super Tuscan wines we do. So to treat every baby, every little label, every single bottle of the production like a son is crucial and is once again a vision, a part of the sustainability process. So this is probably linked to the economy and to the money that you can, of course, in the end, transform. We are a wine business. We do business. So everything, of course, is ethic, but is economically sustainable.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Piero. Any other questions? Ah, Edith.
Oh, Edith?
Release Edith. Oh.
Hi,
There you go. You're free.
Hi, Edith.
how are you?
Fine.
I just wanted to go back to something that you said earlier about the experimental vineyard you've got, about 2 hectares where you're planting foreign grape varieties.
Yeah.
I want to know a little bit more about that. So what's the process behind that? Are you producing wine with those, or are you just looking at how the grapes are developing? And could you tell me a little bit more about the species you're working with and which ones are starting to show some promise?
Yeah. So the meaning is to make micro-vinification of all of the plants, all of the new grapes or rootstocks we are using. So we divided those experiment vineyards into 4 different kind of, let's say, logic. So the first is resistant crosses. So it's grapes resistant to botrytis with thick skins and usually with lower flowering, so lower yields, which are not yet official grape variety. And these were, we are lucky to use them because of the University of San Michele Adige that is providing these new crosses with us. Then the second is hybrids. So we are using hybrids, grapes, which are not allowed to be cultivated in Tuscany yet, but that need 6 years experiment to be proved. So once again, thanks to the university, this hybrid will probably become official grape variety or allowed grape variety or not. So we are doing micro vinification for every single one of those. Then these resistant hybrids are for oidium or mildew, or of course they are phylloxera free. They were built to reduce the impact and to get lower treatments, chemical treatments. So it means that the aim of this new hybrid is to get in the future some new grape varieties or new rootstocks that will be able to survive naturally and more spontaneously than the actual ones. But of course, it's an experiment nowadays. The third one is resistant or existing grape varieties, but not allowed to be planted in Tuscany yet. I'm thinking about Saperavi is a Georgian variety that we are just experimenting, of course, in very few plants. And we will micro-vinify in order to see the reaction of these new resistant grapes in our territory. So, and the fourth, which is maybe the most important in the short term, is how Sangiovese is reacting. So different clones of Sangiovese on different grafted holder. So that means that with new grafted holder, new rootstocks, we try to see how the reaction of Sangiovese will be. So these 4 concepts will be vinified and micro-vinified separately, each one for years. And then, of course, the university will help us and will support us in these 2 nice hectares. We have also into these experimental vineyards a weather station linked to a satellite that is also providing information about how these experiments are linked to the weather condition to face the global warming. Then we planted in a part of our estate which is very rich in soil composition. There are 2 hectares, but with many different soil composition. So the same hybrid or the same rootstock or the same resistant variety in different soils can give different results. So in the end, as you can imagine, is a huge amount of different results that we will have, and we will need long term to understand what is the best. it's more or less, let's say, what we have done with the clonal research of Sangiovese. We have done the same in 10 years' time, planting every single clones in every zone of the estate and just eliminating those that were not responding well, that were not performing in a quality level. So it's a long-term process that probably will change something in being more sustainable also for the viticulture and the agriculture point of view.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for that question.
That's very technical.
Any last questions? No. Great. So what we did last week was we all got to enjoy watching Jgor open a bottle of wine and see what he was going on to. He then privately sent round pictures of his supper, which was a bit unfair because I think he's got better produce on hand than maybe I do. And his cooking might be better. But anyway, Jgor is going to open a bottle for us now, just so we can, you know, look at him longingly in some respects. But while he, tell us what it is.
Can you see the label? I don't know.
Kind of.
Kind of. So maybe the light is not allowing. Anyway,
that's a bit better. If you put your hand just to the light side. There you go. Perfect.
So the wine is a Vermentino Pure, which is a native grape variety from Italy, from Tuscany, Liguria, and Sardinia, 3 regions in Italy where Vermentino grape is quite famous. We are producing Vermentino both in the Maremma area, so in the coastal region of Tuscany, and in Montalcino. So this is a blend of Vermentino coming from 2 regions. The reason why I want to open this wine today is because it's very close to Easter time. So it will be Easter on Sunday. And, you know, the Italians are used to eat a lot on the Easter and used to go out for a picnic on the Monday after. And usually we eat eggs, asparagus, and simple, let's say, food, tapas, easygoing food. And this is a very easygoing wine, but absolutely pure and a fantastic, let's say, result of our territory in Montalcino. Vermentino is aromatic, is, let's say, very flowery, very nice and easy to approach in the nose, with a nice and also, let's say, full body, very creamy texture, which is linked to the weather condition where the grapes are planted. So as I said last time, it doesn't make any sense to make a regular sommelier tasting, even if because the only way should be to share the wines with you, and that's not possible at the moment, unfortunately. So
I'm increasingly questioning whether or not listening to you talk about wine that we can't drink is a good idea or not.
Yeah, you should pay for that, Will. Anyway, it's a very flowery wine, very aromatic. It's very easygoing. It's matching with a lot of food. The last time I forgot to mention what I was eating with the Lalus, with the Albarossa last time. And I made a wonderful pork ragu by myself because in this quarantine time, all of the Italians rediscovered themselves as good chefs. So this time it's not big cooking. It's quite easy. So you can really match with everything you want. But my wish is to drink it in the garden, if you have it, in my balcony, of course, just enjoying a little bit the sun and just to think about the unlock. So when we will be able to do it really, and not just to imagine how beautiful it will be. So this one is really represented that moment to me. So I'm dreaming for that, and I'm dreaming through a glass of wine.
Right, well, instead of watching you do this, I'm very quickly going to try something, which is share with you how easy it is to find all the technical stuff that we were talking about.
Yes.
So if you go on Google, Banfi Sustainability, up to there, and then this is where Banfi published their sustainability report. One of the things that Jgor didn't kind of bang the drum about is the fact that Banfi are a private company, but since 2015, they've been publishing these sustainability reports that really go into what they're doing. This is what you can download. There's a 10-page synopsis and a 110-page report, which is incredibly detailed and will have all the statistics that you might be interested in. And then the other thing is Christina Mariani May spoke at the Climate Change Summit last year, and her whole presentation and the slides to it are available online, and we will somehow post a link to that so you can find that. Let me just get off here. The other thing is, if you want to know more about these things, you can sign up, if you haven't already, to our newsletters on our website. I'm just looking, Rebecca gave me some notes. We also, everyone's commenting. We have also got our handle at Louis Latour UK, which is on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, which kind of gives us details, or we put details of these things up on those. Next week we are with Jgor again next Wednesday at 4 o'clock. It's going to be a slightly different twist, and I think Jgor made a good point that watching other people drink wine is probably less good for the people watching, and we're actually going to focus it at selling wine to customers when they've never heard of the wine you're talking about. So we're going to have a couple of guest appearances. Hopefully we've got a couple of superstar sommeliers going to join us, because wines like La Luce, the Albarossa, is a fantastic wine, and anyone that's ever drunk it will know. But being able to communicate how good a wine is without tasting it is the challenge that sommeliers and wine shops have, and hopefully we can explore the best way to do that. So we'll have Jgor and others with us next Wednesday, and then next Friday we're branching beyond Italy, and we've got Mitchell Taylor from Taylor's Wakefield. He's going to come on and go deep into the 2020 vintage in Australia, the challenges they've faced, how recent events have kind of had to be tackled, and so that's another one on our list, and we'll be publishing more details on our newsletter. Have I got everything across I needed to, Rebecca? You can nod or a thumbs up. Excellent. Right, so I think that just leaves it to me to say thank you very, very much.
I would like to end up just with a couple of sentences, which is representing Banfi quite well, and are from John Mariani, the founder of the company. He used to say that tradition is a well-rooted innovation, and that's of course the base of sustainability, of course, and of the community sustainability. But probably the most hilarious and beautiful is that if you have a diamond in the pocket, show it, don't hide it, don't keep it, so share it. This is once again in the base of the reason why we share the wines with all of the community and the Banfi, the Brunello producer in the area. But the ones which is in the t-shirts of all of the Banfi employees, and mine as well, is the one to end up with tonight, and is a friend of wine is a friend of mine. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, Jgor, and thank you everyone for coming.